What's going on, people? Welcome to another edition of Gen Sports Corner, back at you for 7/25/2021. Having some technical difficulties with the computer, so I'm back on the Samsung right now. But we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about the Eagles. Then we're going to get into the Charlo, Brian Castano fight. I put a rant video up last week, and I'm going to follow up on that, like I said. And then I'm going to briefly talk about the Flyers and their trade of Gostisbehere. So let's get into it. First and foremost, training camp is coming up for the Philadelphia Eagles. The 2021 season is upon us. The NBA season just ended. Congrats to the Bucks. I would have rather have seen the Sixers win the title, but it is what it is. Congrats to Giannis. Had a monster night to close out that series. Dropped a 50 burger on the Suns. A legendary performance, and made a fan out of me even more when I saw him at the Chick-fil-A. I didn't see him personally, but the video of him at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru, just with the trophies with him, and between him and Embiid, they have like this childlike innocence and enthusiasm, but yet they're a beast of a player. So he's quickly becoming one of my favorite players outside of a Sixers player, along with Joel Embiid. So congrats to the Bucks. They earned it. They went up. They showed out. And hell, you look at between the Suns and the Bucks, you saw some former Sixers on there. You saw the homie Dario Saric. Unfortunately, blew out the knee in Game 2, but he was a big part of that Suns team getting to that title. So the homie got to play in a championship, find out what it's like, and congrats to him. And then Drew Holiday, from before the process, before everything was blown up, congrats, salute to my man Drew Holiday. You were a true Sixer. You gave me one of the best moments in recent history as a Sixers fan when you took us, I think it was to Game 7 against the Celtics, back when he had Garnett and Paul Pierce and them boys. And, hey, back when nobody thought that this team with Drew Holiday and Iguodala was supposed to do anything, and you went out and as a young player, really had some clutch moments. I was there. It might have been Game 6. I was Game 5 or Game 6. I don't remember which one. But I was over at the Wells Fargo Center, and you put on a hell of a performance, and salute to you for getting your first title, man. Congratulations, sir. That being said, let's go ahead and get over to the Eagles. Training camp's coming up. We're going to see what this new squad looks like. Jalen Hurts and the Devontae Smith connection, as well as, some of the other weapons they have on the team. With Zach Ertz, who I believe said he's going to show up to training camp, even though there's the dispute with the contract situation going on. And then you have Dallas Goedert. So you got some weapons now. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do. So Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor, that's the 1-2 tandem right here. And obviously everybody knows Devontae Smith played at least 1 year with Jalen Hurts out in Alabama, Roll Tide, and they look good. So I think that chemistry is already there. So it's not going to take much for them to click and get on the same page. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. That's going to be one storyline. And then the next one, which nobody's really talking about, it's been flying under the radar, is what's going on with Deshaun Watson down in Houston. Because the consensus is that he's going to be gone. It's almost a foregone conclusion there. They are a dysfunctional organization. That's clearly obvious. Stevie Wonder could see that with a blindfold on, But the question is where he's going. And a lot of people will say there are 3 teams that are generally in the mix. And those 3 teams would be Denver, Miami, and the Eagles. Because all 3 teams have 3 first-round draft picks in the next 1 to 2 years. So that's a lot of draft capital, a lot of ammunition to go and get a guy like Deshaun Watson. And I'm reading a report from SI.com, the Houston Texans daily page, and it's saying Texans trade of Watson to the Eagles, 90% chance of happening, in quotations. Now, the reason behind that, Howard Eskin on WIP, he was talking about it and he put numbers on it. And, say what you want about Howard. Some people like him, some people hate him. He's a very polarizing figure, but he does his due diligence. So Howard said, I've talked with people in Houston, and they're all but resigned to the fact that they're going to have to trade him. There's only 3 teams, and talking to people around the league that I know of, that really have the strong desire. That would be Denver, because I mean they have Drew Lock, but is he the future? Don't know. Miami with Tua, would they take Tua over Deshaun Watson? They probably take Deshaun Watson. And the Eagles have the 3 first-round picks, and that's what they're going to have. And this is the prediction I'm going to make, based on the information that I got. When, and I'll say when, he is traded, when in all caps, I think there's a 90% chance that he will be with the Philadelphia Eagles. And people have been downplaying this, not talking about it, saying they wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. I get it, but when it comes to winning, look at the Eagles' history. Have the Eagles never ever not had a polarizing figure, starting from T.O. all the way up to the extreme end of the spectrum with Michael Vick, right? I know comparing EPAR, you can, flip that word around backwards and see what I'm talking about, to dog killing. They're 2 separate issues, but they're 2 very serious offenses. You'd be surprised, even looking at EPAR and how insidious that is, you'd be surprised how passionate people are over their pets. Many people view their pets as family members, as an extension of themselves. So for some, and I would beg to argue a lot of people, that gets put in a similar stratosphere as EPAR. So, I wouldn't be shocked with Jeffrey Lurie at the helm for the Eagles to be at least considering trading for a guy like Deshaun Watson. Whether they believe what, if these things are not true, even with the amount of controversy surrounding him, I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles were in the mix for Deshaun Watson. So that's something to keep in mind, because let's say if they trade for Deshaun Watson, damn, what happens with Jalen Hurts? I mean, because if Deshaun comes here, he is the guy. I mean, you're talking about top quarterbacks in the league. You're talking about the Pat Mahomes, at least for the next 1, maybe 2 years, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, even still, Aaron Rodgers. And then, in my opinion, Deshaun Watson. You put Deshaun Watson on any of those teams I've mentioned, and he's taken those teams to a Super Bowl. He's just been in such a dysfunctional situation for the past 4 or 5 years with Bill O'Brien and that Texans organization that he has not been able to get them to the promised land. I mean, they trade great players for a bag of footballs, and they make mind-boggling decisions in the front office. So that's something to keep an eye on. I will be keeping track of that situation and keep you guys updated on that. But that's big news. That's big news. That could shake up not just the landscape, not just the Eagles situation, but the landscape of the NFL and the power balance in the NFC. Seriously. So that's that. And then third, let me get to the Flyers, because there's a big move. They traded Gossespierre, and that's crazy. So they traded Gossespierre to the Coyotes for the Coyotes' 2nd and 7th round picks in the 2022 draft. The Flyers desperately needed cap space in a flat cap world, and Gossespierre had a $4.5 million cap hit for the next 2 seasons. He's been up and down the past 2 years. I mean, that rookie season, he came out on fire, man, and it just didn't pan out the way we thought it would. But I still think he has the makings of a very good to possibly still being a great player at this point. So, I want to thank him for what he brought to this organization. But that's one of the big moves for the Flyers this offseason. We'll see how they use that money, because they were kind of strapped for cash. So that was a big move for the Flyers recently. And then lastly but not least, let me get to boxing briefly and talk about the fight from last week between Charlo and Brian Castano, which I was really passionate about. So this was a unification bout for all the belts at 154. There's never been a unified champ at 154, and they could have made it happen last Saturday, and they did not. Boxing effed it up again. For those who are just tuning in, I talked about the Eagles earlier and the possible Deshaun Watson trade, and I also talked about Shane Gossespierre getting traded to the Coyotes for a 2nd and 7th round pick in next year's draft, because they really needed the cap space. Those were the 2 big things. And then now I'm talking about this fight from last week at 154. Jermell Charlo. Look, I like both guys. I like Jermell Charlo. He had a loss against Tony Harrison and avenged that loss. A loss where I thought he got robbed 2 fights ago against Tony Harrison, and came out in the next fight, was losing the fight. Tony Harrison got cocky, and then Jermell caught him with a good shot and stopped this guy and earned his belts back. So kudos for that. But then in this fight, he had to defend that. Well, not defend them, but he was in the mix for this unification bout with Brian Castano for all 4 belts. I think Castano had 2 and Charlo has 2. So you could have had the first unified undisputed champion at 154 in boxing history. And the way I saw the fight, it was a good fight. Charlo had his spots, I think, in the 2nd round and then the 10th round where he hurt Brian Castano and almost got him out of there. And look, Brian Castano showed a lot of composure, a lot of veteran moxie. He's not an old guy by any means, but I'm just saying for his age, he has those veteran instincts where he was able to hang on, really navigate those dark and insidious waters to make it to the closing bell and come out in the next round and continue to come back and apply pressure. It showed me a lot about Castano. And I didn't get a chance to do a prediction video before this, but there were a lot of things that I liked about Castano in his highlight footage, right? So Barrios, when he fought Tank Davis, that was for, there might have been a unification bout. I don't think it was for Undisputed, but it might have been a unification bout. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Barrios, very solid fighter, but I just did not see enough from the footage where I thought that he would be able to beat Tank Davis, and he ended up getting stopped in that fight against Tank. But when I saw Brian Castano's footage, my buddy told me about him. I'm looking at the footage, I'm just like, yo, I think he might beat Charlo, because this guy, effective aggression, solid power, will get you on the ropes, feint you, and then tee off on your ass. And that's what he did to Charlo for most of the night here. And his punch output is insane in most of his fights. Now, his punch output wasn't as high in this fight because I think there had to be a certain healthy respect of Charlo's reach and his power. And he was very smart. And Charlo as well. His output wasn't as high because he couldn't go out there and make mistakes against a guy like Brian Castano, because Castano will make you pay. He will hurt you when you overextend yourself, and he will finish you off and send you to the shadow realm. And both guys had a healthy respect for each other. Even though there was a lot of, you know how Charlo is, the Charlo brothers, they're hot-headed, they let their emotions show, but I think that's how they are. They're being themselves. I don't see that necessarily as a con or somehow like a disadvantage for them. I think that feeds into their energy come fight night, and it helps them out. And you see him in the ring, he didn't get stupid. He might have been aggressive and all rah-rah before the fight and coming to the ring with a scowl on his face, but as soon as the fight happens, laser focused, trying to make smart decisions. And this was a very high-level chess match. I loved the fight, but I thought that Castano was able to land more effective punches. Charlo landed more jabs, but Castano landed more power punches. So Castano outlanded Charlo over 12 rounds by a margin of 173 to 151, including 164 to 98 in power shots. And that's huge because even though Charlo clipped him a couple times and hurt him, for the majority of the fight, Castano hurt him in, I think, round 3 as well. So he hurt Charlo before, and he was getting him on the ropes, feinting him and landing some good power shots, good body shots, landing up top, clipping the jaw at times. Charlo got a jaw, kudos to him. It wasn't fading out or going nowhere, but Castano, he dictated the pace of the fight, in my opinion, from what I saw. Dictated the pace of the fight, landed the cleaner shots, and even though he got hurt 2 times, over the course of the fight, he landed the more effective shots, and he was more active. So there was no way in the world that I'm living in that Castano lost this fight. I had Castano winning 9 rounds to 3. To be fair, if there was a swing round here or there, I could see it being 8-4 for Castano. But I thought Brian Castano clearly won this fight. However, the scorecards did not reflect what I just said to you. So Judge Tim Cheatham had it scored 114 to 114, which is ridiculous to me. Steve Weisfeld from my home state of Jersey had it 114 to 113 in favor of Castano. Should have been a wire margin in my opinion. But Nelson Vasquez turned in a head scratcher, according to CBS Boxing, a head scratcher of 117 to 111 for Charlo. I believe that's 9 rounds to 2 or 9 rounds to 3, something like that, which allowed him to retain his WBA, WBC, and IBF titles. So, excuse me, Castano had the WBO title. CBS Sports had it 116 to 112 for Castano unofficially. That's 8-4, and that would be a fair score in my opinion. I had it 117 to 111 for Castano, the complete opposite of what Nelson Vasquez had it, but I could see it the way CBS Sports had it and what most other people had it, being 8-4. But I thought it was very clear, very, very clear. Brian Castano won this fight, and they robbed this man. He might not, I don't know if there's going to be a rematch, but he might not get this opportunity again. And even though the world knows he won, and the opinion that he won is visibly in the clear, he's never going to get that moment back. That will always stick with him, unfortunately. And I hate to say that, but it will, man. This is one of the biggest robberies, in my opinion. And yes, I'm calling it a robbery. Since Manny Pacquiao versus Jeff Horn, or Manny Pacquiao versus Timothy Bradley. I'm trying to think of another one that was recent. Triple G and Canelo, the first fight. I think this is worse than Triple G, or maybe neck and neck with Triple G and Canelo in the first fight. A fight that I thought Triple G clearly won. The second fight, I thought it was a draw. I could have seen a draw. But the first fight, I thought Triple G clearly won the fight 8-4, if not 9-3, the same way as I saw Brian Castano, defeating Jermell Charlo by the same score. But that's boxing for you. You get a moment to set history and really give the fans what they've been clamoring for years, and you find a way to screw it up through greed and corruption. The only way on God's green earth where you could have a scorecard 117 to 111 for Jermell Charlo is if you had it filled out in the parking lot before you walked into the stadium. Complete and utter ridiculousness. He should be banned, fined, and never allowed to step foot in the stadium to judge this sport ever again. But we know that won't happen because boxing doesn't have a central governing body. Yeah, there's a disadvantage to that in the UFC, having a singular governing body, under Dana White, because the fighters don't get paid what they should, but the fans do get the best product because you have the best fighting the best, and it's a lot. It happens with much less frequency for you to get a completely screwed up scorecard in UFC like you get with boxing. You do get some robberies and some bad scorecards, but not the way you get in boxing. It's just completely corrupt. That's why I would never bet money on boxing unless I thought the guy was just head and shoulders better than the other guy. Because then the A side is usually going to get the nod, even if they didn't win the fight. But outside of that, I would never bet on boxing because you have scenarios like this. If you bet on Brian Castano, you should have made a lot of money because he clearly won the fight. But if you did bet on him, you would have broke even or whatever because it was a draw. It's crazy. But that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think. I'll be uploading this to my YouTube channel, and I'm gonna aim to come on a live streams and drop videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and then once or twice on the weekend, just to keep updated on sports, especially since the Eagles are starting back up. Training camp's going to be a daily occurrence, so I'll be covering that like clockwork. So that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next time. Enjoy your Sunday, chill, relax, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.